Hey there, and welcome back to Clear Path Conversations. I'm Mark Bernardin. In the last episode, we talked about spotting expansion opportunities that are in plain sight. We covered usage patterns, stakeholder signals, and how to time the ask so you're leading conversations instead of reacting to budget cycles. We talked about being proactive with expansion instead of just hoping that customers recognize the value on their own. Today we're talking about something that comes after you've delivered that value. We're talking about customer advocacy. Because here's the thing. Most CSMs think advocacy is something that marketing owns. They think it's about getting customers to agree to case studies or reference calls when sales needs them. And when it's handled that way, advocacy feels transactional. It feels like asking for favors, and customers can sense that. But real advocacy is different. Real advocacy is about building relationships where customers want to share their success because you've helped them achieve something worth talking about. It's about creating mutual value instead of one-sided marketing requests. And when you do advocacy right, it doesn't just help your company's pipeline. It strengthens your relationships. It creates professional development opportunities for your customers. And it positions you as someone who delivers outcomes worth celebrating. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to build customer advocacy systematically, how to identify who your advocates should be, how to match advocacy opportunities to what customers actually want, and how to make advocacy requests feel like opportunities instead of asks. Because the best advocates don't just show up when you need them. They're built through ongoing value delivery and strategic relationship development. Now, over the years, I've built advocacy programs that generated dozens of case studies, hundreds of reference calls, and multiple advisory board relationships that drove millions in pipeline influence. I've helped customers land speaking opportunities at major industry conferences, get promoted based on thought leadership they developed through our advocacy programs, and build professional reputations that open doors that they didn't know existed. But I didn't start there. Early in my career, back at Cofence, I learned what not to do. And that lesson shaped everything that I've built since. I was managing a retail customer who'd achieved incredible results with our platform. They'd reduced phishing incidents by 70% in just 6 months. Their security team was thrilled. The executive sponsor was publicly praising our solution in their internal meetings. So when our VP of marketing asked for customer references, I immediately thought of this account. I sent an email to the director of security. Subject line was, "Hey, quick favor." I asked if they'd be willing to do a reference call with a prospect and maybe participate in a case study. And you know what happened? Nothing. No response. I followed up a week later. Still nothing. 2 weeks after that, I mentioned it on a regular check-in call. The director was polite but vague. Yeah, we're just really busy right now. Let me check with my team and I'll get back to you. Translation? No. I was confused. This customer loved our solution. They told me multiple times how much value they were getting. Why wouldn't they want to help us? Here's what I learned. I'd approached advocacy completely backward. I'd framed it as a favor to me. I'd ask them to spend their time helping our sales team close deals. I'd positioned it as something they should do because they were satisfied customers. But I'd given them zero reason to care. I hadn't offered anything in return. I hadn't connected it to their professional goals. I hadn't made it a value for them. And when you approach advocacy that way, even your happiest customers, they'll ghost you. So let's talk about what actually works. The first thing you need to understand is that advocacy isn't about satisfaction. Satisfaction's table stakes. Satisfied customers, they might renew, but they're not going to invest time in helping you unless there's something in it for them. Real advocacy comes from customers who've achieved measurable business outcomes that they want to talk about. Think about it this way. When someone achieves something significant, they want recognition for it. They want their peers to know. They want their leadership to see it. They want their industry to acknowledge it. That's human nature. Professional success means more when other people know about it. So your job as a CSM isn't to ask customers to help you. Your job is to create opportunities for customers to showcase what they've achieved. That's a completely different frame. Instead of asking a customer to do a reference call, you're offering them an opportunity to be recognized as a thought leader. Instead of asking them to participate in a case study, you're helping them build their professional reputation with a published success story. When you position advocacy as an opportunity for them, the conversation changes completely. So here's how I approach advocacy now. First, I identify advocacy potential early on. I'm not waiting until renewal time to think about who might be willing to help. I'm looking at my portfolio throughout the year and asking who's achieving outcomes that are worth talking about. And here's something most CSMs miss. I'm not looking at what customers say. I'm looking at what they do. The framework I use is what I call the advocacy readiness assessment. It goes beyond satisfaction scores because satisfied customers aren't necessarily advocates. Real advocacy potential shows up in customer behavior. I look for customers who have achieved measurable business outcomes, expanded their usage significantly, or voluntarily shared positive feedback about our solution. These customers demonstrate advocacy readiness through their actions, not just their words. When a customer expands from 10 users to 100 without you pushing for it, that's an action. When they voluntarily send you an email saying they just presented your ROI results to their board, that's an action. When they proactively introduce you to colleagues at other companies, that's an action. Those behaviors tell you more than any satisfaction survey ever will. Once I've identified customers showing these behavioral indicators, I run them through a more detailed assessment. There are 5 key criteria. 1, measurable business outcomes they can quantify. Not just, we like the product, but we reduced incidents by 60%, or we saved 400 hours of manual work per quarter. Specific numbers that demonstrate clear ROI or competitive advantage. That matters. 2, credible organizational reputation. This could mean that they work for a recognizable brand, or they have strong industry presence, or their title and responsibilities carry weight with your target market. When they speak, people listen. 3, strong stakeholder relationships across multiple organizational levels. The best advocates aren't just point of contact happy. They've got executive sponsorship, operational buy-in, and end user adoption. That depth of relationship makes their advocacy credible. 4, willingness to share their experience publicly. Some people love public speaking. Others prefer written testimonials. Some are happy to do private reference calls, but don't want their name in marketing materials. You need to understand what they're comfortable with before you ask. And 5, alignment with your ideal customer profile. The best advocates look like the customers you're trying to win. If you're selling to financial services, a case study from a retail company doesn't carry the same weight. Industry relevance matters. So when customers check all 5 boxes and they're demonstrating advocacy readiness through their behavior, then they're ready. But here's what most CSMs miss. They treat advocacy as binary. Either someone's willing to be a reference or they're not. And here's the bigger problem. Most CSMs approach advocacy reactively. They wait until renewal time and then ask satisfied customers if there'll be references. That's not advocacy development. That's desperation marketing. Real advocacy programs identify potential advocates early and build mutually beneficial relationships that create ongoing value for both parties. So advocacy isn't binary. It's a spectrum. I use a 3-tier framework for advocacy participation. Tier 1 is minimal time commitment. Tier 2 is moderate time commitment. And Tier 3 is significant ongoing engagement. Let me break these down. Tier 1 advocacy is things like brief testimonials or allowing their company name to be listed as a customer or participating in reference calls with qualified prospects. These activities take 15 to 30 minutes per quarter. They're super low effort, but still valuable. This tier is perfect for customers who like you, appreciate the value you deliver, but don't have a lot of extra time. They're willing to support you, but it needs to be easy. Tier 2 advocacy includes case study participation, webinar presentations, or conference speaking opportunities. These require 2 to 4 hours per quarter, but they provide significant professional development value. This is where advocacy starts getting interesting, because when you offer a customer the chance to present at a webinar or speak at a conference, you're not just asking for their time. You're giving them a platform. You're helping them build thought leadership. You're creating networking opportunities. A lot of mid-career professionals want this kind of visibility. They want to be seen as experts in their field. They want to speak at industry events, but they don't always know how to get those opportunities. So when you connect them with speaking opportunities, you're delivering real value. And in return, you get powerful advocacy content that really resonates with your prospects. Tier 3 advocacy is advisory board participation, product beta testing, or ongoing strategic consultation. This requires monthly time investment, but it gives customers exclusive access to your product roadmap and also influence over your solution development. This tier is for your most strategic customers, the ones who are deeply invested in your success, because your success directly impacts theirs. These are often customers with significant deployments, complex use cases, or long-term strategic partnerships. What makes Tier 3 valuable for customers is the access. They get to shape the product. They get early visibility into new features. They get direct relationships with your product and your executive teams. And for you, Tier 3 advocates become powerful validators. When a prospect asks about a complex use case, and you can say, let me connect you with one of our advisory board members who's been running this at scale for 2 years. That carries incredible weight. Now, here's the key to making this framework work. You match the advocacy tier to what the customer actually wants. Not what you need, what they want. If you've got a customer who's early in their career and looking to build their professional reputation, Tier 2 is perfect. Offer them speaking opportunities, help them get published, introduce them to industry analysts. If you've got a senior executive who doesn't need more visibility but wants strategic influence, Tier 3 makes sense. Get them on your advisory board. Give them access to your CEO. Make them part of your long-term strategy discussions. If you've got a customer who's stretched thin and doesn't have bandwidth for anything big, Tier 1's fine. Get a testimonial quote. Add them to your reference list for private calls. Just keep it simple. The mistake most CSMs make is trying to force Tier 2 or Tier 3 engagement on customers who only have Tier 1 bandwidth. And then they wonder why customers say no. When you match the ask to what customers actually have capacity for and what they're interested in, advocacy becomes natural. Let me give you a real example. At Palo Alto Networks, I was working with a large healthcare customer. Their CISO had been promoted recently. It was building her reputation in the industry. She was speaking at local security meetups, writing blog posts, and trying to establish herself as a thought leader. I noticed this because I paid attention. I followed her on LinkedIn. I saw that she was posting about things. I understood what mattered to her professionally. And here's what separates strategic CSMs from tactical ones. Tactical CSMs see advocacy as something marketing needs. Strategic CSMs see advocacy as relationship development that creates mutual value while demonstrating their ability to think beyond customer satisfaction and into partnership building. When you build advocacy programs systematically, you're not just helping marketing hit their case study quota. You're showing leadership that you understand how to develop strategic relationships that drive business outcomes. You're demonstrating that you can think beyond your individual accounts to build scalable programs. You're proving that you can create value for multiple stakeholders at once. That's what gets you promoted. That's what gets you noticed by hiring managers at other companies. That's what distinguishes you from CSMs who just maintain relationships. So when our marketing team was planning a webinar on security orchestration in healthcare, I reached out to this CISO, but I didn't ask her to do a reference call or participate in a case study. I offered her a co-presenting opportunity. I told her marketing wanted to feature a customer perspective on the webinar, and I thought that her insights on building a security operations center in a complex healthcare environment would be valuable for the audience. I framed it as a professional development opportunity. I mentioned that we'd promote the webinar to thousands of security professionals. I told her she'd get a professionally produced recording that she could share on LinkedIn and add to her speaker portfolio. And then I made it easy. I offered to pre-interview her and draft talking points. I told her the time commitment was 1 hour for prep and 45 minutes for the live webinar. She said yes immediately. The webinar had over 1,000 attendees. She crushed the presentation. Afterward, she told me 3 people reached out to her about speaking opportunities at other events. She was thrilled. And our marketing team got a powerful case study that generated dozens of qualified leads. That's what good advocacy looks like. It created value for her. It created value for us. And it strengthened our relationship because it helped her achieve a professional goal. Now, here's what I don't do. I don't approach customers about advocacy when I need something. I build advocacy relationships continuously. What does that mean? It means I'm delivering value between advocacy requests. If I have a customer in my tier 2 advocacy pool, I'm not just reaching out when marketing needs a webinar speaker. I'm delivering ongoing value through what I call the advocacy value delivery framework. First, I provide industry insights that inform their strategy. I send them research reports, analyst briefings, trend analyses that help them make better decisions for their organization. Second, I facilitate networking opportunities that advance their professional relationships. I introduce them to peers who are dealing with similar challenges. I connect them with industry leaders. I create opportunities for them to build their network. Third, I offer strategic consultation that improves their business outcomes. When they're evaluating new technologies or planning major initiatives, I provide perspective based on what I'm seeing across my customer base. And fourth, I create recognition opportunities that enhance their industry visibility. Speaking engagements, published case studies, award nominations, thought leadership platforms. When you deliver value across all four of these dimensions continuously, advocacy requests don't feel like asks. They feel like natural extensions of the relationship that you've been building. This is how you build sustainable advocacy. You don't treat it as transactional. You treat it as an ongoing partnership where you're continuously looking for ways to support their professional success while they support your business objectives. And when you do that, advocacy requests don't feel like asks. They feel like opportunities. One more thing. When customers participate in advocacy activities, recognize them publicly. If someone speaks at your webinar, promote their session on LinkedIn and tag them. If someone participates in a case study, send them a thank you gift. If someone joins your advisory board, acknowledge their contribution in company communications. Public recognition does two things. One, it makes the customer feel valued. Two, it encourages other customers to participate. When customers see their peers getting recognition for advocacy, they start to see it as something valuable instead of something they're doing as a favor. And here's another piece that most CSMs skip. Document your advocacy program procedures. Create standardized processes for advocate identification, tier assignment, outreach templates, and relationship management. Why does this matter? Because when your advocacy program is documented, it scales beyond just you. If you get promoted to manage a team, your processes can be replicated. If you're interviewing for a senior role, you can show hiring managers that you've built systematic programs, not just managed relationships reactively. When I interview senior CSM candidates, I ask them about their advocacy programs. Most say that they've done reference calls or helped with case studies. The ones who stand out say that they built advocacy frameworks with documented tiers, systematic nurturing processes, and measurable outcomes. That's the difference between doing advocacy work and building advocacy programs. Now let me talk about measurement. A lot of CSMs struggle with this because advocacy outcomes feel soft. I mean, how can you prove advocacy is working? Here's what I track. Reference call conversion rates. If I'm setting up reference calls with prospects, what percentage of those calls result in closed deals? That tells me if my advocates are effective. Event attendance and engagement. If we're hosting webinars or user conferences with customer speakers, how many people attend? How engaged is the audience? Are we generating leads from those events? Lead generation from case studies. When marketing publishes customer success stories, are they driving inbound interest? Are sales teams using those effectively? Participant satisfaction scores. After advocacy activities, I check in with customers. Did this meet your expectations? Did you get value from the experience? Would you do it again? And ongoing engagement levels. Are advocates staying involved over time? Are they participating in multiple activities? Are they introducing us to peers? That tells me if the relationship is sustainable or if it was just a one-time favor. Those metrics tell me if I'm building advocacy the right way on both sides of the equation, business value for the organization, and personal value for the participants. If reference calls aren't converting, maybe my advocates aren't articulating value clearly. If webinar attendance is low, maybe I'm not promoting them effectively. If customers don't want to participate again, maybe I'm not delivering enough value on my end. Metrics help you refine your approach. Let me give you one more example of advocacy done right. At Swimlane, I worked with a financial services customer who'd built a sophisticated security automation workflow using our SOAR platform. They'd reduced their incident response time from hours down to just a few minutes. It was an incredible use case. I approached their VP of security operations about participating in our upcoming user conference. But instead of just asking if he'd speak on a panel, I offered to help him develop a presentation that he could use at multiple conferences. I worked with him to structure the content. I helped him create slides. I coached him on the storytelling. I made sure the presentation showcased his team's expertise, not just our product. He presented it at our user conference. The session was packed. Afterwards, he got invited to speak at 2 other industry conferences. He used the same presentation at both of those. Just a few months later, he reached out to me unprompted. He said, "Mark, I've got another customer asking about our automation setup. You want me to do a reference call?" I didn't even have to ask. He was offering because I'd created ongoing value for him. That's the goal. Build advocacy relationships so strong that customers proactively offer to help because they see the relationship as mutually beneficial. Now let me address some common challenges that CSMs face with advocacy. The first one is fear of rejection. A lot of CSMs avoid asking for advocacy because they're worried customers are going to say no. And that fear is understandable. Rejection feels personal. But here's what I've learned. When customers say no to advocacy requests, it's almost never personal. Usually it's one of 3 things. 1, bad timing. They're in the middle of a major initiative, a budget cycle, an audit, a reorg. They just don't have the bandwidth right now. 2, internal approval complexity. Some organizations have strict policies about customer references. They require legal review, PR approval, executive sign-off, hoops upon hoops. It's not that the customer doesn't want to help. It's that the process is too heavy for the value that they get. 3, competitive sensitivity. If you're working with companies in highly competitive industries, they might not want to publicly disclose which security tools they're using, which automation platforms they've deployed, which vendors they've standardized on. So when a customer says no, just ask them which of these is the issue, because oftentimes you can solve it. If it's timing, schedule a follow-up conversation in 3 months. If it's approval complexity, offer to handle the paperwork and make it as easy as possible. If it's competitive sensitivity, offer alternative approaches like anonymous case studies or private reference calls that don't require public attribution. The point is, don't take no personally. Treat it as a problem to solve. The second challenge is customers who agree to advocacy but don't follow through. They say yes to the webinar, then cancel 2 days before. They commit to the case study, then ghost when marketing tries to schedule the interview. This happens when you haven't built enough value into the opportunity. If advocacy feels like work, customers will deprioritize it. If advocacy feels like an opportunity, then they'll make time. So when you're setting up advocacy activities, make them as easy as possible. Offer to pre-interview customers and draft their talking points. Provide professionally designed slides they can reuse. Handle all the logistics and coordination. And make sure they're getting something tangible out of it. Professional recognition, networking opportunities, access to exclusive resources, content they can share on LinkedIn to build their personal brand. The more value you build into the experience, the less likely customers are to bail. The third challenge is advocacy that doesn't scale. A lot of CSMs manage advocacy relationships one-off. Marketing needs a reference, they scramble to find someone. Sales needs a customer to join a prospect call, they reach out to whomever responded last time. That's not sustainable. If you want advocacy to work at scale, you need a system. Here's what that looks like. Every quarter, I review my portfolio and update my advocacy roster. I identify new customers who've crossed into advocacy readiness. I check in with existing advocates to see if their tier assignment still makes sense. I document what advocacy activities they've participated in and what value they received. I keep all of this in a tracker: customer name, advocacy tier, outcomes they've achieved, what they're interested in, what they've participated in, and when I last engaged with them. This way, when marketing asks for a healthcare customer to speak at a webinar, I don't have to guess. I can look at my tracker and see which Tier 2 healthcare advocates have strong webinar experience and are due for an engagement. When sales needs a financial services reference for a competitive deal, I know exactly who to reach out to and what talking points are going to resonate. Systematic advocacy means you're not scrambling, you're prepared. And that makes you more valuable to your internal teams and more respectful of your customers' time. Let me share one more story about advocacy done exceptionally well. At Deepwatch, I worked with a customer in the energy sector who'd implemented our managed detection response services across their entire environment. They'd gone from 23-day mean time to detect threats down to 4 hours. Massive improvement. Their detector of security operations was sharp. She understood the business impact. She could articulate value clearly, and she was building her career towards a CISO role. I identified her as a tier 2 advocate, but instead of immediately asking her to participate in marketing activities, I spent 3 months building that relationship. I sent her research reports about security trends in the energy sector. I introduced her to a peer at another energy company who was dealing with similar challenges. I invited her to a private roundtable discussion with our CTO about emerging threats. I delivered value first. Then, when our marketing team was planning a customer panel at an industry conference, I reached out. But I didn't just ask if she'd participate. I told her the conference had 1,500 security leaders attending, mostly CISOs and VPs. I told her the panel would be moderated by a well-known industry analyst. I mentioned that previous panelists had received speaking invitations at other events. I framed it as a career development opportunity, a chance to be visible to the exact audience she needed to know her. She said yes. But here's where it gets good. After the conference, she told me that 2 CISOs approached her about open director roles at their companies. She ended up getting interviews at both. One turned into a job offer that she leveraged to get promoted internally. 6 months later, when she got promoted to VP of Security Ops, she sent me a note. She said, "Mark, that panel you got me on changed my career trajectory. Anytime you need me for anything, I'm here." And she meant it. Over the next few years, she participated in 4 case studies. I saw that she joined the advisory board, and she probably did a dozen reference calls with prospects. But it all started with me understanding what she wanted professionally and creating an opportunity that helped her get there. That's advocacy at its best. When you help customers achieve their professional goals, they become your biggest champions, not because you ask them to, but because they want to. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your customer portfolio right now. Who's achieving measurable outcomes worth talking about? Who has the organizational credibility and comfort level to be an advocate? Pick 3 customers. Run them through the advocacy readiness assessment. Identify which tier makes sense for each of them. Then reach out. But don't ask for a reference call or a case study. Offer them something valuable. A speaking opportunity. A thought leadership interview. A chance to join your advisory board. A professional networking connection. Frame it as an opportunity for them, not a favor for you. And then track what happens. See if they engage. See if the experience creates value for them. See if it strengthens your relationship. Because when you build advocacy the right way, it's not just about getting references for sales. It's about creating partnerships where customers want to celebrate their success publicly because you've helped them achieve something worth celebrating. Now, if you want help building your advocacy program, I've got resources for you. At clearpathcx.com, there's an advocacy framework toolkit that includes the readiness assessment template, tier definitions, and request email templates that you can customize. It's designed to help you systematically identify advocacy potential and build relationships that create mutual value. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about something that makes a lot of CSMs uncomfortable. We're going to be talking about how to introduce customer success-led upsell without feeling like you're selling. Because here's the truth. Expansion conversations are part of your job. But most CSMs approach them the wrong way. They either avoid them completely because they don't want to seem pushy, or they hand everything off to sales and miss the opportunity to drive revenue themselves. We're going to talk about how to navigate that middle lane, how to position expansion as a natural extension of value delivery, how to have revenue conversations that strengthen relationships instead of damaging them. Until then, here's what I want you to think about. If you've got customers achieving real outcomes, they deserve recognition for it. Your job isn't to hide their success inside your customer base. Your job is to create opportunities for them to showcase what they've accomplished. That's good for them, it's good for your company, and it's good for your career. Follow the show on your favorite platform. Visit clearpathcx.com for the Advocacy Framework Toolkit and other resources. And connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Mark Bernardin. If this episode changed how you think about customer advocacy, send me a message. I read every one. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work. And thank you for showing up and delivering every single day. I'll talk to you soon.